Star Trek Starfleet Academy is such a stupid title. It's so awkward. But not only is it awkward with those three words and the colon in there, like they couldn't decide what they were doing, so they just mashed it all together. It's actually extremely telling. It's a title with three words, and each of those words indicate a key problem with the very fundamentals of the show. Like if I were a producer and these writers came up to me to sell the show and say, hey, we got an idea. We're going to call it Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Just off the title, I would have said no. Don't do that, because the title indicates huge problems, which I'll go over. First, I want to say that I absolutely hate modern Star Trek. Since Enterprise, I think I don't like basically anything that they've done with Star Trek. And in fact, some of the Discovery seasons and the Picard show were some of the worst television I've ever seen in my life. And I'm a big Star Trek fan. I think Lower Decks is okay, but I don't consider it Star Trek. And Strange New Worlds is okay, but the writers keep making some key problems with their storytelling, the way they approach it. They keep it from being truly good. So it's almost like a guilty pleasure. It's just a sci-fi show. It's not like I'm watching Star Trek. Really quickly, the problem with Strange New Worlds is they tend to introduce the main problem of each plot pretty deep into the episode. So like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes in, and then they immediately solve it like within 5 minutes. Magically. They use mumbo jumbo out of nowhere and just solve it. Whereas good Star Trek, traditional Star Trek, they would introduce the main plot like before the first commercial break. It's like within 5 minutes or maybe just after that first commercial break. And then the whole episode, the whole arc will deal with that problem. But Strange New Worlds doesn't do that for some reason. The writers, I think they prioritize like the soap opera aspect, the love stuff, the jokes, the interpersonal relationships, rather than the plot or the sci-fi aspect of Star Trek. But I think they need to see that they have to balance them. They need to find a balance, and they haven't managed to do it. And I don't think they're even really trying to do it. So that's the problem there, I would say. But anyways, I don't like this franchise anymore. And so in watching this, I wanted to see and give it a chance to see what they do. So I try to approach it with an open mind. And what did I think? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over exactly that. But I'm also going to do a little bit more because I am Ryan Bosling, the Drama King. And in this channel, I go over fictional narratives in pop culture, mainly movies, TV, and occasionally video games. And I take the stories apart at a technical level to say what's wrong with them and how to fix it. Or if it's good, what's good about it. And I'm focusing mainly on the narrative, like the script. My background is I was a quarterfinalist in the Nickel Fellowship. I have an MFA in creative writing fiction. I was a lecturer, university lecturer, English composition and literature. I've done tons of workshops. I've done craft talks with like famous writers who've won everything. And I use all that experience to analyze these things. So first I'm going to do a really brief synopsis of this episode. And then I'll give a quick review of what I thought, like what my score out of 10 is for the show. And then I'll break down the key problems of this one episode and how to fix them, what I would have done differently. And by the way, I know there are 2 episodes out in that first week, but I'm only doing the first one because I think they're not standalone, but they're separate episodes, not like a 2-parter. So it's completely valid and right to look at each episode in its own right. And I think it's kind of interesting to look at the start of television shows to see how they launch it and the kind of like landmines that are placed there, if you're not careful, that could kind of kill a series and hobble it for its duration. A mother who's been imprisoned with her 6-year-old son, Caleb, is awaiting sentencing on a Federation outpost for having joined a pirate crew led by Noose Baraka out of desperation and starvation, and then hijacking a supply freighter, incidentally killing a Starfleet officer. In a quiet moment with Caleb in their cell, she makes him remember a series of star systems which will act as their personal secret code for unspecified reasons. Called to face the colony's ranking officer, Nalaake, she is sentenced to a rehabilitation camp where she'll be granted visitation rights. She curses the pirate leader for putting her in that position, and Starfleet for taking her son away as a ward of the Federation. When the officer later visits the son to comfort him, Caleb manages to steal her comm badge and escape. 15 years later, Caleb, now 21 and a hardened outlaw, is detained in the shuttle, being taken to another penal colony. He manages to break free knock out the guards, and take control of the ship's controls. However, he is immediately recaptured by a larger ship and detained. Meanwhile, Ake is now working as a teacher on Bajor, having resigned her commission in disgrace for how she broke up Caleb from his mom. It's revealed that she's actually a centuries-old Lanthanite, by the way. Admiral Vance visits her to ask her to take over as Chancellor of the newly founded Starfleet Academy on San Francisco. She has no interest in doing so until he reveals he's found Caleb and will let her talk to him and recruit him if she joins. She agrees. She travels to Caleb in the penal colony. He scoffs at her offer of getting him out if he joins the academy. But when she reveals his mother actually escaped jail a year ago, and that she will help him find her if he joins, he agrees, upset that his mother hasn't already tried to contact him. They travel to the Athena, a ship that serves as a training ship in Academy building when it'll later land in San Francisco. And in that ship, they set out for the journey to Earth. They and we meet an assortment of crew and students. At some point, Caleb sneaks off to hack into the computer to search for possible messages from his mother, using their secret subspace frequency code. When he finds nothing, he sends a message out for her. Suddenly, the ship detects subspace fluctuations, and the Chancellor decides to investigate as a training exercise. It turns out to be a trap laid by the pirate leader from Caleb's past, Newsbraka, who detected Caleb's message on the old Venari signal and homed in on the vessel. Braka's ship and mines ensnare the Athena in programmable matter, rendering the ship's systems inoperable, with the goal of stealing the warp core. Caleb, with the help of the other students and bridge crew, removes the programmable matter, takes back the ship, and destroys the enemy vessel. The pirate captain escapes, and Caleb is pardoned by Starfleet with minor punishments and agrees to stay with the Academy. So let's look a little more closely at the title and see how that kind of spells doom for the series at the foundational level. So the first word in the title, or first phrase, is Star Trek. What does Star Trek represent? To me, Star Trek represents a future that's guided by enlightened values. They're basically following the values of like liberal, enlightened humanism. They believe in rationality. They believe in discovery and scientific research and inquiry. They believe in discussions to solve problems and figure out things. They believe in nonviolence. They believe in human rights and the sanctity of every life. They believe in, you could go through all kinds of things, but you get the idea. But Star Trek also represents exploration in space. So they boldly go to new places. And then you also have space battles, of course, and so on. So that's kind of the basic Star Trek template. That's the idea of what Star Trek represents to me. And I probably missed a few things, but you get the idea. So now let's look at the second word, Starfleet. What does that represent? Well, Starfleet is made up of people, mostly officers that we follow in the shows, who are exactly like me and you. They're human. Now, yeah, on the outside, some of them might be alien, but inside they're human. They have the same feelings, the same desires, the same fears, but they're like us, but they're better than us. They're the best version of us because they're extremely competent, they're smart, they're open-minded, they're fair. They don't get involved in petty squabbles. They talk to each other, they figure things out. So they're like us, but the best possible version of us. And so as we watch these Starfleet officers in Star Trek, we're watching these best possible versions of us face problems that are far greater than anything we will ever face. We watch them face impossible situations and somehow find a way out because that's how good they are. And that's what makes us want to watch these guys. We could relate to them, but we could also aspire to be like them. So they're facing impossible moral dilemmas that challenge their deepest beliefs. The problems they usually face in like the best episodes challenge their deepest beliefs. So you have to watch them struggle with that. So now take all those kind of ideals, those elements of Star Trek and Starfleet. And now let's add the third word of the title to that and watch all that explode. Okay, so you add academy into that. So now what does that mean? What does that represent and what does that do? Well, when you have an academy, that's a static place. You're in a school. So you're not going to see space exploration and space battles. Naturally, you wouldn't expect that. It doesn't lend itself towards that. So right there, you just blew up that whole part of Star Trek. Second, you're dealing with untrained young people, like kids essentially, because they're in the academy, they're college kids. So what does that mean? Well, they haven't fully integrated the ideals of Starfleet or the Federation, excuse me. They don't really know what they're doing, so they're not super competent. And they're not equipped to handle the hugest problems that Star Trek throws at its characters that we like to see. So basically, you're going to have kind of like idiots like us, or even worse than us. They're like high school kids or college kids on our own planet right now, our own reality. They're worse versions of our best selves instead of the best versions of ourselves. And we're going to watch them fumbling around in a school. So you've destroyed the essential elements of Star Trek and Starfleet. There's not going to be any boldly going. There's going to be like mucking about and screwing up on Earth, in San Francisco, on this academy. So right there, just through the title, I could tell that this show, not only is it not what I want to watch, but it's not Star Trek. It doesn't fit into the franchise for me. And you might say, well, other shows had this problem too. Like, let's say Star Trek Deep Space Nine, that takes place on a space station. So you might say, well, that gets rid of the whole exploration aspect, right? It's a static station. But if you look a little closer, actually, Deep Space Nine in the first like 1 or 2, maybe 3 seasons, it's been a while since I watched it. It's been like 10 years, I think, since I watched it all. But the first few seasons sucked because they mostly took place like on the station, and they dealt with the boring like Federation, Cardassian, Bajoran stuff. And then the show completely changed. It went into the Dominion War and the whole storyline with the changelings and explored the religion stuff, the prophet, and things like that. So the writers took the show and just completely wrenched it away like 90 degrees from the concept of a space station. And they started going more out into space. They went into the wormhole. They went to the Gamma Quadrant a lot. They had space battles, space exploration. And they even added the Defiant to the show. They added an actual ship because the guys realized, the writers were like, oh man, we fucked up. We shouldn't have done a space station because it sucks. We got to change the show. So they added the Defiant and they added all those new storylines. So yeah, Deep Space Nine, it's not a good idea on paper. And they actually had to change it. And so the story went from being centered around Cisco and like Kira and kind of Odo in the first season or whatever, first few seasons, and taking place a lot on the command center on the station. That was like the main set, I think. They had that a lot. And then after a few seasons, that set basically disappeared. And the show moved to the concourse, to the mall, to Quark's bar. That was like the heart of the ship. And then it moved out to like space and the wormhole. So the center of the show moved out to like the frontier edges where there's exploration, to like the crazy anarchy of Quark's bar, where you see aliens and there's diplomacy and skullduggery and stuff going on. And so that's my worry with the show. They're locking into the academy with these stupid kids. And to make it work, well, I'll just ask a question. Can the show work? Do I think it could work after actually watching the episode? Because everything I've described is what I thought before I saw it. Now I've seen it. So do I think it could work? And so let's see. I'll go into that. What did I think about the show? Well, I thought it was really bad. If I had to score it out of 10, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. And my overall impression is this show reminded me of really mediocre to bad Star Trek. Especially like those Star Trek The Next Generation movies that were just bland and stupid and everybody forgot about. That's what this was like at its best. One of the things that irritates me about the show is that it's built on the wreckage of Discovery, where they're taking place 1,000 years in the future in this stupid setting post-burn, whatever the hell that was. That whole thing was such a mistake. I don't understand why they destroyed the Federation and now they're rebuilding the Federation. Like, what was the point of destroying it in the first place? And I know why we could like theorize and stuff, why they made these stupid decisions. And I don't want to get too far into it because that's more a problem of the Discovery writers, and this just inherits it. But I hate this setting so much that the show being here just makes it such an unlikable show. I don't want to spend time here. Because the cool thing about original Star Trek, the real Star Trek, is they built up a universe, a galaxy, where we understood the politics. Like, you had Klingon space, you had Romulan space, you had the Borg outside making incursions. It was understandable. You kind of knew the layout, the politics, the diplomacy going on. Here, it's a complete vacuum. There's nothing there. So I don't feel danger. I don't feel risk. They just bring up random bad guys of the week. And it doesn't connect to anything bigger or real. They just do whatever they want. Because now I have no idea what's going on in this world. So I hate the setting in general. But the biggest problems, I would say, once I finished the show and kind of sat back and just took it in, my feeling was, wow, that was really boring, pointless, and disjointed. And I'm going to go into those and break that down, what went wrong and why it ended up like that. But I just want to say I gave it a 4 out of 10. I didn't give it a 5 because this is worse than just average. It is bad. It's stupid. But I didn't give like a 0 or a 1 or a 2 because for two reasons. One, I think that there could be potential here theoretically if they like sacked the writing team, got a whole new team of writers, and really do some hard work to make it. They have to change the show basically, and I'll talk about that to make it work. But there is one character I like. I think her name is Genesis, which is kind of a weird name. Like it's like the Genesis Project. I don't know if they're going for something with that. Probably not. But she's an okay character, but she reminds me, she's like a clone of La'an Noonien Singh from Strange New Worlds. Like they even look similar. They could be sisters. And then the personalities are very similar. So I like her, but she's copying that other character. And I mean, some of the other characters might be able to work if they develop them some. Like you have Mini Worf. He's just a copy of Worf. Another copy. He was okay, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of people that I'd say, yeah, I guess they're okay. You know, so if they work on them, maybe it could work. So I'm not going to give it a 2. Also, the other reason I don't want to give it a low score, super low score, is because traditionally Star Trek always sucks in the first episode, or even like the first 2 or 3 seasons. So I'm giving a little bit of leeway to develop to something better. I think the only good Star Trek pilot was maybe the original series. It's been a long time since I've watched that. It was like 5 years ago. I went back and watched it all. And I think that first episode where it wasn't Captain Kirk, it was, I think Pike was the captain at that point. And then Spock has like that weird werewolf man makeup. He looks different. And I think that episode was actually good. But TNG sucked. Deep Space Nine sucked. Voyager sucked. All those shows sucked the first episode for sure, and even the first few seasons. So I'm not going to be too hard, and I'm trying to be a little bit positive here. So 4 out of 10. But anyways, let me break this down now. The key problems with the show. And I'm going to start with the fact that it's disjointed, because that's a core structural problem with how they decided to structure the story. So if you look at the story, from the start to about 21 minutes and 20 seconds, that's the introductory point, the beginning. And that's where they're introducing the kid and his mom and the problem. The problem being he got separated from his mom, and now his goal is to reunite with her. And you get some of his background, that he's like this bad boy outlaw thing. They also introduce the Chancellor, the fact that she feels guilt. You get that she gets recruited into the academy, and then you get her recruiting the kid. So all the way up until she recruits him, that's the first section of the show, and that's 21 minutes, 20 seconds. At that point, when they're on the shuttle to go to the Athena, that kicks off the second part of the show. And in this section, they're just basically introducing all the characters. The students, the crew, a little bit of the crew, not really, and the setting of the ship and stuff like that. That lasts until 41 minutes and about 16 seconds. So if you notice, that's about 21 minutes for part 1, and the same for part 2. And then part 3, this third part of the show, kicks off where they detect the subspace fluctuations or whatever, and they decide to go. So that's at like 41:16, like I said. And that goes on till about 1 hour and 6 minutes. And in that section, they have to fight the bad guy, take the ship back, destroy him, and so on. So that's like the action part. That's the third part. And so that's a little bit longer. That I guess is like, 25 minutes? So you have 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So what's the problem, you're thinking? Because a lot of you probably know stories have a beginning, middle, end. So this has 3 parts, so that's fine, right? That works? Well, no, it actually doesn't work, because those 3 sections have nothing to do with each other. The beginning is the kid and his mom. Okay, that's kind of okay. Part 2 has nothing to do with that. They're just introducing characters randomly. Get a lot of cutesy stuff, a lot of stuff that goes nowhere. I'm going to break that down a little bit more. And then the third part is mediocre TNG movie action. Stupid random bad guy, stupid random plot. You don't really give a shit. You know everything's going to be fine. And it's just really bland, meaningless, stupid action. So part 1 of the episode didn't lead into part 2 because those themes don't carry on. They don't do anything with the mom. The mom doesn't carry on. The space pirate isn't in part 2. The kid is there, but he's not doing anything in relation to what happened in part 1. Except that for like 20 seconds, he sends out a signal to his mom. So there's no connection. There's no connective tissue, really. There's no storyline being carried on. So it's like you reset and you lose any sort of tension and interest. And then you go into part 3 and it comes on us randomly. So again, there's no carry through. It's just some random space anomaly that they literally just like, oh, there's an anomaly. Let's go. It didn't carry on from what they set up in the beginning. And they didn't develop it in the middle. So it's like its own separate story. They mashed 3 little stories, or maybe not even stories. They're more like vignettes. They just mashed 3 vignettes together and expect us to watch it and to think, oh, this is Star Trek. This is good. This is a story. But it's not. It's not a story. It's just random shit happening. 3 chunks of random shit smashed together. Because in a traditional story, besides the beginning, middle, and, what connects all of those? Why is that considered one story, whereas I'm saying this isn't? What's the missing element? And so there's actually 2 missing elements. What you need is an A plot, or the main plot. And then usually, especially in a story this long, over an hour long, you're going to need a B plot, or a subplot. So you have the plot and subplot. The plot in the story is the main storyline. Like if your friend asks you, oh, what's that movie about? That's the thing you would usually say that would first come to your mind. So you would say like, oh, a bad guy took over a building and he planted a bomb and the cop has to sneak in there and defuse the bomb. So that's a really simple, understandable plot. The B plot usually intersects with the main plot, but it's a little bit different. And it can explore the themes of the main plot, or it could flesh out the main character a little bit in a way that the main plot doesn't allow. So a subplot, or the one I just said, would be like the cop's wife, who hates him and is trying to divorce him, is captured in that building. And so while he's trying to save the day and defuse the bomb, he's also trying to prove himself to her and save his marriage. And so obviously that's kind of like a Die Hard story that I just described. But that shows really good how you have plot and subplot, or A plot, B plot. And in this show, they didn't have either. There's no plot connecting the whole thing because the stuff that happens at the beginning doesn't connect to the end, to what happens in the 3rd section with the action. Because there's no cause and effect. Plot is just cause and effect. Plot is what happens when you have a character chasing their objectives to reach their goal, and they have to overcome obstacles. So they try to do something, they get blocked, so they do something else or defeat that. And then the opposition tries even harder to stop them. So now the good guy has to try even harder to beat that. And you ping pong back and forth in rising tension until you reach the 3rd act where the final battle happens. So it's the plot that carries you from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3. It's all connected through cause and effect. But this show completely lacked that because after Act 1, they completely dropped the stuff about him chasing his mom. And instead now he's just wandering around the ship and we're wandering through it, looking at stuff, seeing people, getting jokes, just random crap happening for 20 minutes. Nothing except that one brief time that he calls his mom. There's not a single plot element in the entire middle, what would traditionally be called the 2nd act. I'm not going to call it the 2nd act because it's not worthy of that. It's just random stuff. And everything that does happen is like thrown in their lap. So the kid wants his mom. The Chancellor says, I found her. I'll help you. The Chancellor wants the kid. Admiral Vance tells her, I found him. I'll help you find him. The bad guy wants to find a ship, and he just randomly hears the kid's transmission. And the Chancellor wants to go do some scientific exploration, and it just randomly happens to be a trap where the bad guy is. So it's a lot of coincidence, and that's not plot. And there's no B plot, because there's nothing intersecting with that main plot. If the main plot doesn't exist, you can't have a B plot. It's such a disjointed mess. One of the big ways that this show is disconnected is that when they're trying to create certain feelings or plot points, they don't work because they don't set them up properly. So there's often very little logic because they're too lazy or they're just not good. They don't go that extra level as writers to really think about what they're trying to say and put it down, to fill it out, really make it make sense. So I was left confused. So I'll start at the beginning. That's the best place to start here. In that introductory chunk, that first 20 minutes I was talking about. The first big beat is that the mom gets sentenced to hard labor, or to a labor camp, I guess. And the kid is made a war to the Federation. And so you're supposed to feel, there's supposed to be some sort of course, the mom is angry, but she feels betrayed, I guess, because the chancellor, the future chancellor, didn't help her. And then you're supposed to feel sad for the kid because he lost his mom. And this sets up the rest of the show, supposedly, because now you're like, oh, he's obsessed about his mom. He wants to find his mom. That's the whole, supposed to be like the line for this character, for his arc, and for the season, probably. But when you look at it a little more closely, it doesn't really work. Because what is the mom sentenced for? Supposedly she was starving. And so to provide for herself and for her son, she joined a pirate crew, Newsbraka's pirate crew. They don't say it outright. They don't really say exactly what happened and what she did because I think the writers realize this doesn't make sense. So they're keeping it as unfocused as possible. So you just go like, yeah, whatever. You just got to go along without thinking what they're doing. So I guess she joined the pirate crew. They attacked a freighter for food, and then a Starfleet officer died in the process of that. And by the way, that made me wonder, don't they have replicators? They used to for certain in Star Trek. But I guess now with the burn, they have programmable matter and like floating stuff everywhere, levitating nacelles and ships that come apart. But I guess they don't have replicators now. So that just another thing, the politics or the economics of how things work. But anyways, if she joined a pirate crew and then they killed a guard, why is the mom astonished when she gets prosecuted and sent to a camp? Because if you're a pirate and you murder somebody, even accidentally, so it's like manslaughter or what, a second degree or something, you know you're going to be punished. That's what happens to pirates who kill people. But she acts astonished. And then why does the chancellor feel bad? That was the right thing to do. The woman did something horrible. She was a fucking pirate and they killed somebody. So there's nothing to feel angry about or to like want to quit the Federation. It's not like she did anything wrong. So I was just very confused. Like, what's going on? Why is everyone acting like she wasn't a pirate? She was a pirate. They said that, sort of. Then when they bring Newsbraka out for the first time, the first thing he says to the mom is, he says something like, wow, malnutrition really brings out your cheekbones. But supposedly, didn't they just say that she joined the pirate crew because she was starving? So when he saw her the first time, that would have been her malnourished. When he's seeing her now, she would probably be fatter, or not fatter, but healthier, because they're feeding her in the jail. So that's a small thing, but again, it's just the logic isn't there. She was malnourished before, that's why she joined him. And now he's acting like she changed, she looks different. I don't get how that works. It doesn't really work. Then, and here's the bigger one. The chancellor, the future chancellor, I don't know what her rank is at this point, captain, I guess. Whatever. She tells the woman that she's, for some reason, she's going to send her, instead of sending her to prison, she's sending her to a work camp, which doesn't make sense. She's a pirate. She killed somebody. She shouldn't be going, she shouldn't be getting like a soft sentence just because she has a kid. I mean, tons of people have kids. Serial killers have kids. It doesn't mean you don't send them to prison. You send them where they belong, where justice demands. So her being nice to her doesn't make sense. But then she says she's going to have visitation rights at this work camp. So that brings an obvious question. Why didn't the kid, Caleb, visit her? All those years, all those 15 years, he could have been visiting her, I don't know the schedule, every day, an hour a day, every week, every month, probably every week at least, maybe even every day. But they're acting like she was locked away and he couldn't see her, and that's why he's obsessed with finding my mom. I gotta find my mom. But he could have seen her. He could have grown up with her, essentially, because she had really generous terms. She had visitation rights. So again, this isn't making sense. They act crazy that she gets thrown to jail, even though she's a murderer and a pirate. The chancellor acts guilty because she sentenced her, which is what she deserved. And now they're acting like the kid was prevented from visiting her when she had full visitation rights. So nothing makes sense. And I'm not feeling bad for the kid. I don't feel like he needs to find her or something, because it was there the whole time and he chose not to do it. So the story, everything's disconnected here. Now, when the mom gets sentenced, she gets dragged away. She starts screaming at the kid. Well, she screams at the pirate, at Newsbraka. I guess she's angry at him because, well, what did he do? He helped her feed her kid. So why is that bad? He didn't force her to join him and his pirate crew. She willingly joined. So there's nothing to be angry with him about. She agreed to do it. And then he didn't like betray her by killing the guy on purpose, the Starfleet officer. It happened on accident, so it's not even really his fault. It's as much an accident for him as it was for her. They're both equally to blame or not to blame, however you want to see that. So why is she screaming at him? And why is the bad guy considered a bad guy? He didn't do anything bad to the family, to the kid and the mom. He fulfilled his end of the bargain. He helped her get food. So instead of her cursing him and trying to punch him or whatever, she should be like, thank you. Thank you so much for helping me. I'm sorry it didn't work out for us, but I wish you the best. In the future, if you need help, we run into each other, maybe we could team up again, and this time we won't accidentally kill somebody like morons. That's what she should be doing. She should be thankful to him. And then she tells the kid, don't trust them. Don't trust the Federation. And so you have to ask, well, why not? How did the Federation screw them over or lie to them? She joined a pirate crew. She killed a Federation officer, a Starfleet officer. And now she's getting punished. That's right and proper. They didn't screw her over. Instead, she should be yelling to the kid, don't trust me. Don't trust your mom. Because I'm a pirate and a murderer. I'm a thief. Trust the Federation. Trust Starfleet. And so they're going for like the big dramatic thing. They think they need to have her angry at the bad guy because they're forcing him to be the bad guy. And they think they have to have some sort of connection to the mom and the kid. So she's telling him to like trust her. So he'll chase her after and like look for her. She's like his salvation. And he needs to have like a chip on his shoulder. So he always hates the Federation. He's a bad boy. He's an outsider. So that's why they're having her say that. And those are the beats they want. But they didn't earn them because logically nothing here is adding up. And then there's just like more stupid stuff I'll mention real quick. Like the kid escapes by doing this trick with the comm badge. Now the comm badge thing doesn't work. How did the kid know to open a panel by the window? I guess theoretically the mom told him. Maybe. But if you notice when the Chancellor first walks into the jail cell, there's a guard inside the door staring at the kid. That doesn't make sense in itself, but I'm going with what they're doing here. So if they have a guard watching at all times, when the Chancellor left to go get the bear, the guard would have been in the cell with the kid watching the kid screw around with the comm badge and the panel and the window. He would have stopped him. So just another logical, like a short circuit. Like nothing is working in this story. And I have zero confidence in their writing abilities and their storytelling. But I feel zero emotion here because it's not earned. It's kind of a bizarro world. It feels almost detached from our regular human world we know about. This isn't how things work. This isn't how emotions work. So it's just horrible. And there are plenty more examples. We could skip over the middle section I talked about because zero plot happens in there. Nothing happens. It shouldn't exist. They should delete all that crap. 20 minutes of garbage. I'll talk about that in a little more detail about why it's bad. Exactly. Give examples. But let's skip to the next actual plot point, which is when they discover the subspace interference, I think they called it. I don't remember the exact terminology. And then the Chancellor, the captain, decides on her own. She just decides, well, let's go out of our way. We're supposed to report to SF, to San Francisco. But instead, let's just go out of our way to go over here for training, even though school hasn't even started. So it really weakens the plot when the main characters willingly jump into danger on their own. She completely chose to go into the trap. If she had just followed her fucking job and gone to Earth, episode would have been done after 20 minutes, as soon as the kid agreed to join. But she does this stupid thing where she does something really dumb just so they could have this excuse for action and all this crap. And because it has a bad start, a bad setup, everything that follows is garbage. It makes the characters look stupid. When she decides to go in, she says, give it a wide berth. And then the ship goes in, and guess what? They didn't give it a wide berth. They're right in the middle of the storm, like in ground zero. And not just right in the middle of it. They're just like a few miles or a few kilometers from the mines, from the trap. So they jumped into the trap. It's so stupid. When plot points, you should not have the character willingly go into it out of stupidity, unless the characters are supposed to be dumb. But these are supposed to be Starfleet officers. They're the best humanity has to offer. And she's acting like an idiot. She ignored her orders, and then they put the ship right in the center of the problem instead of being on the outskirts of it. So it's another bad setup. Now, another way of looking at this is that from the bad guy's perspective, he was also a moron because he set this trap, supposedly. But how good was this trap, really? All he did is went into a subspace storm, which I think are pretty normal in space. We see them all the time in Star Trek. And he's just hoping that a Starfleet captain is stupid enough to jump right in the center of this storm. That's a bad, it depends on coincidence. It's a bad setup from his perspective, too. Not only that, but the way he started the way he got the whole idea and decided to do this trap there is because he picked up the kid's transmission. Caleb's, like he did that special frequency thing because of his mom, like he's looking for his mom. So I have to wonder, is he monitoring, after 15 years, is he monitoring that one line? Or did he just randomly pick it up in the background? Because both options are equally stupid. Because first off, let's say, was he monitoring on purpose? Well, then where did he get it? Because it was supposedly secret. That was the whole idea about it. The mom made the kid memorize it. Nobody else knew about it. So you could be generous and say, well, maybe when he broke the mom out of prison because she got out like a year ago at this point in the story. And I guess they were serving together. So maybe he tortured her and somehow he asked for her secret signal with her kid or how she's going to contact her kid. So then you got to ask, why is he obsessed with this mom and this kid? Because once he takes over the ship, the Chancellor asks, do you want the kid? You're never going to get him. And he says, no, I don't give a shit about the kid. I just want your warp drive. So then he's not obsessed with the kid. So what's this thing about, they make it like a personal vendetta, but he just said he doesn't care about the kid. I don't know. Like, I'm struggling to understand here what's going on. Now, if he picked up the signal in the background and he's like, oh, there's a ship coming, so let's just wait behind these clouds and then we'll jump them, right? That seems to make more sense. But then he says it was an old Venari signal. And I think he's Venari himself. I'm not sure exactly what the politics here is. But then if you picked up a Venari signal, wouldn't you assume it's a Venari ship of some sort? You wouldn't assume, oh, it's a Venari signal, so it's a Federation vessel. Let's get in there. Like, that doesn't really make sense either. So I'm completely lost, basically. And it's the kind of thing, just like at the start where I mentioned the kid and the mom, where if you're like doing something else, which you probably should be, you should be like folding your clothes or doing work or writing emails as you're watching this, because otherwise the show is too stupid. But if you're doing something else as you're watching this, and like half your brain is on the show, you'll be like, blah, 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 yeah, that's fine, whatever. But if you're actually focusing and thinking about it at all, the entire thing falls apart. And it continues falling apart. So once the guy takes the ship over with his programmable matter, whatever that means, whatever that does, no idea, they have to go outside. One of the kids has to go outside to scan the programmable matter. And of course, this is an excuse to show how he's an alien. He's a cool new alien with this strange new skin and all this stuff, and he doesn't need a spacesuit. So they're using this as an opportunity to showcase the character, which is, I guess, fine, whatever. But the problem is that Caleb, before they send the kid out, he said he was going to run a randomizer algorithm. So he already had a plan. And it was only as a joke where he tells the girl, you could get an EV suit and go outside and scan it, and then maybe I'll be faster, because she's telling him to hurry up. And then she takes it seriously, and then that's how the other kid volunteers to go outside to do the spacewalk. So basically my point here is that the guy didn't have to go outside. Caleb was going to use a randomizer algorithm to begin with. Nobody had to be put in danger. And there's no time limit here. There's no clock that they have to do it in like 10 seconds they're going to blow up. So he could have just taken his time and let the algorithm do its work. So again, they're forcing action here. They're forcing plot points to fill out the show, to make it feel like it's a real experience with all this action and stuff like that. But none of it is called for. It's not set up properly. And then it continues with stupidity. The reason the kid goes is because supposedly Genesis can't get an EV suit, because to use an EV suit, you need an officer present and paired to the suit. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Does that mean the officer has to go out of the ship with them? Or they just have to input their special code into the suit and then they can use it? So, I mean, the problem is right after they say that, the girl activates the emergency medical hologram, the doctor, and he gives her his code and lets her go into the computer. So why couldn't he have done that with the EV suit, to give her an EV suit with his code? That kind of contradicts it. Maybe not. Maybe if he has to go outside the ship, then I guess that wouldn't work, or maybe it would. I don't remember what the doctor can do, if he could leave the ship or not. That kind of doesn't work. But then once the kid decides to go outside to walk, he picks up boots in the hallway, EV boots with magnets. But I thought he couldn't get an EV suit. So how did he access these boots? The boots are just in the hallway, and he grabbed them. So it's just like irritating that they say they're not allowed to get an EV suit, and then he's just like, oh, there's EV boots. I guess I'll put those on. So it's not making sense. How did he get the boots? Why are the boots out there and not the rest of the suit? I'm going insane. But there's more. There's more stupidity. Of course there is. These writers aren't done. So on the bridge, at one point, the captain asks somebody on the bridge, I forget who, can't we just blow out the airlock and shoot the bad guys into space to handle the problem? And they say, no, you can't, because the programmable matter has taken over the ship, and so we can't access the systems. They can't jettison the bad guys. That seems to make sense, right? But wait, let's think about this. The kids, especially that girl Genesis, they're running all over the ship. She runs from, I think, several times throughout the ship, and guess what? Doors are opening for her. Okay, so she can open doors and move around the ship at will. Second, the Kionian kid or whatever, the one that wants to do the spacewalk, how does he get outside? He opens an airlock. So if they can open doors and open an airlock, which they just said they can't open doors and can't open an airlock, so they can't jettison the bad guys. Well, guess what? They can jettison the bad guys because they're controlling doors and airlocks. So it doesn't make sense. They say something and then they contradict it. It makes me feel insane. Oh, and there's another thing. The chancellor ordered the academy training program to keep the guy. I'm not sure why she ordered it, actually. I think it was to keep the guys busy, to waste time or something like that. Maybe. And she chose a certain program. And then the woman on the bridge crew, when she inputs it, she's like, oh, that's the fun one or something like that. Okay, but notice, she ordered that particular program before Caleb even told her that he needs to access the deflector array. He told her that at the very end of the process. I don't think he even knew it at first. He tells her that, and then suddenly that training program she did just happens to be the perfect one to trick the bad guys to leave engineering so that the kid could go and access the engineering computer. So in other words, she ordered academy training program that would trick the bad guys before she knew that she needed to trick the bad guys to achieve that end goal. So it doesn't work. The writers cheated because the writers knew what they needed to do, but they couldn't think of a better way to do it. And so they're hoping that through a bunch of random shit happening, you're not paying attention. And then like a magician, like, oh, look over there. And then bam, they do the little trick and the warp core is going to supposedly explode and the bad guys leave the ship. So that doesn't make sense. So right there are examples from the biggest moments in the show when they're setting up the character of the kid, his mom, the work colony, all that stuff. And then the big action sequence at the end where, because they don't set it up properly, it doesn't pay off. Nothing makes sense. So the story doesn't seem to really flow. It doesn't seem truly meaningful. The stakes aren't there. And you don't feel true empathy for the characters because the characters act stupid. The woman the chancellor jumped into danger. She chose to go out of her way into the trap. The bad guy set a stupid trap. And the kid didn't even go visit his mom for 15 years when he was fully allowed to. He was able to, and he didn't do it. Instead, he ran off into the darkness to go be a little thug. So everything feels disjointed, disconnected. It's like they're just forcing crap together, like shoving it together to try to make a Star Trek show, and it's not working. But there's more examples of how this show is disconnected. And one of the biggest things I noticed is that this show feels very Star Wars-y. We start with the characters at a penal colony type thing. Then the mom gets sentenced to another penal colony type thing. And then the kid's in a shuttle being taken to a penal colony. Then he gets recaptured to go to a penal colony. Then we find out he's in a penal colony. And the chancellor goes and visits him in a penal colony. Why are there so many fucking penal colonies in this? There's more penal colonies than like starships in Star Trek now. It's so dark, so edgy, so crazy. It's like Star Wars. And this character, Caleb, how many times have you seen this? He's like a bad version of Han Solo or Endor. Or it's not Endor, it's Andor. And that girl from the Star Wars game now, Outlaws, she's kind of like that. You could think a lot of these rebel smuggler type characters, and he follows along with that and his backstory and the whole penal colony, his long list of crimes that are supposedly supposed to be cool and dark. He's actually like a wimp. And the way he looks at the beginning, his clothes, which by the way, did you notice all the zippers that he's wearing like a hoodie? I think I literally have that sweater, that hoodie, and he has zippers. And then the Star Trek uniforms, the other Starfleet officers have zippers too. I don't know, just ridiculous. But anyways, the Star Wars stuff is not just that kind of like thematic stuff with penal colonies and his crimes and stuff like that. Also, they have a lot of voices that are manipulated, like the woman on the bridge, and then the Klingon kid. And I think the shuttle voice at the beginning, they have a very like Darth Vader-y, Kylo Ren type of sound. It's a Star Wars sound, their voices. Sound effects are Star Wars-y when that shuttle's flying and crashing and stuff. Holograms are always Star Wars-y, of course. The names of the characters are, I think, really Star Wars-y too. The woman, the Chancellor, is Nala Ake. The kid is Caleb Muir. The Klingon, Worf Jr., is Jaden Cragg, or Jaden Cragg. I think one of the characters, Darum Raimi. I don't know. To me, these just feel like very Star Wars names. Compare that with like Geordi LaForge, Beverly Crusher, Spock. You know, like that's Star Trek. This stuff is Star Wars-y, just in the naming alone, which is kind of crazy. Then the screens, like the interface that they have, very dark, lots of blacks, blues. The floors are shiny. People have said this stuff before. It's like the Starship stuff looks like it. And in fact, I would say a lot of the elements of the show look like they went to like ChatGPT or whatever, some AI generator, and said like make Star Wars stuff, but a little different. It just has like those screens. It almost looks like you can't read it. You know, like AI creates that gibberish and is vaguely sci-fi looking. It looks cheap. That's how this looks to me. A lot of this stuff. Also, they did several, I think 2 or 3 instances of the stars and pan move that Star Wars does. So that's like where they start on like the camera showing like a star field, and the camera would like pan up or pan down, and you'll see like a planet or a ship. That's like a super famous Star Wars thing. That's how they start all the movies, and they did that here several times. So it's got to be conscious that they're trying to Star Wars, Star Trek to make it more exciting or something. I don't know, so kids like it, more actiony. I don't know, but that is disconnected from what Star Trek usually is and what it's supposed to be. But it's not just that this show is disconnected between Star Trek and Star Wars. There's not just that disconnect. There's also the disconnect within itself, because the whole thing isn't Star Warsy. They change and it becomes kidsy. It becomes really kiddie, I should say. So you go from that tragic, dark Star Wars start with the kid in the penal colonies. Then they get to the academy, and suddenly it's all wacky jokes. Like the main character is now like making faces, like wacky faces. When he goes through that portal and his clothes change, when he gets automatically a haircut, a new outfit, he like looks up with that face and he does like that Home Alone face. If you've seen Home Alone, it's kind of famous, where the kid puts like aftershave on his face and he screams. He does that face. I couldn't believe it. I expected him to scream. Now, luckily, he doesn't scream. Instead, he says like, what the fuck? Like they cut it, which isn't appropriate either, by the way, for Star Trek. That's another disconnect. They use a lot of slang in this. But then they have the doctor like hamming it up. He's real kiddie. The girl, one of the girls in line in the medical bay, says that she swallowed her tricorder, I think, or her comm badge. And it's not meant as a joke. She's serious. So it's like, what the hell? Like, why would the writers do that? That's so immature and just kicks you out of it. So stupid. The Sam character, the hologram girl, she's supposedly programmed to act 17, but she acts like 6 years old, but not a normal 6-year-old, like a kind of weird 6-year-old. So it takes you out of it with that kiddie stuff. When they have the fight in the hallway, and the bully asks the good guy, the main character, what, are you his attack dog? The guy looks at him and goes like, bow wow. It's like a horrible, even gayer, dumber version of something that you would see in Top Gun. When they're under attack and the captain calls the doctor after, like, there's all this wreckage and people injured, the doctor gives an update, and then he says, avoiding a direct hit again would be super helpful. Like, that's so stupid and unprofessional. And then when I think Sam gets too close to Caleb, when he's like hacking the computers or whatever, using the computer, he's like, personal space. And there's just a lot of examples of just stupid stuff, really immature, kiddie stuff. It's badly done in itself, but then it contrasts really awkwardly and badly with like all the Star Wars crap and like the dark, like dank direction that they're taking Star Trek. So it just doesn't jive. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about the show. What is it? Who is it for? Is it for kids? Is it for people who want to watch Star Wars, but are too stupid to realize that they're actually watching Star Trek, so you got to trick them? I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. It's a mess. The next big problem with the show, and it's actually fatal to storytelling, is that there are no obstacles for the characters, no true obstacles. There's nothing they have to overcome. All problems are basically instantly solved, and all tensions between characters are basically instantly resolved as well. So look at Caleb and the Chancellor when she comes to visit him in the colony, penal colony, to recruit him. He's like, no way, I'm not joining. You're the Federation. I'll never join. My mom, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I'll help you find your mom. He's like, okay. So that tension there weren't many obstacles. He instantly joined. Well, actually, the Chancellor too. The Chancellor, she quits her job at the beginning, and she's like a teacher. Somehow she became a teacher. From a Starfleet captain to a teacher, naturally, teaching little kids. Vance comes to recruit her to be the Chancellor of the Academy. She's like, no way, I can't do that. I quit in disgrace. I hate what the Federation has become. And he's like, well, I'll help you find Caleb. And she's like, okay. So again, zero obstacles, zero tension. There should have been tension between these characters because they supposedly want and represent opposite things. But no, they don't do that. They just kill it right away. Then you have some scenes that are similarly flatlined. So at one point, the Klingon kid bumps into Sam and he drops these Star Trek binoculars. I guess they have binoculars 2,000 years from now or whatever. And then this bully comes up. Typical like high school bully. Grabs the binoculars and him and his buddy are like tossing them from one to another. Really stupid, immature stuff for Starfleet Academy. And then the Caleb comes and supposedly they have a tense confrontation. But then the doctor comes and he's like, everyone leave. Get out of here. Don't fight. And the bully's like, okay. And he and his buddies they just walk off in the background. They don't even show him again. They just disappear. So that tension is gone. And not only that, later on, after the ship is attacked, the bully and Caleb and all the other stupid kids are stuck together in that room when they're injured and like the ship's all damaged. There's almost no tension. They have like a second of tension. And then I think, what's her name? Laura Thok, the first officer. She tells them like, stop fighting. And they're like, okay. So they stop fighting. They don't fight anymore. There's like no tension. They're the best friends ever after that. So that problem overcome immediately. Then you have Caleb and the tough girl, the Noonien Singh copycat girl, Genesis. He's hacked into a computer, which is like serious, you would think. Hacked into the computer to send a message illicitly. The girl walks in. I mean, first off, why does she even walk in? She just like wanders in into this random room. That irritated me. I might break that down too. But she walks in, she sees what he's doing, and he's like, are you going to tell on me? Because she could get him kicked out of the academy, and she probably should tell. If she sees somebody doing something like that, hacking into the computer, that person could be a spy. You don't know what the hell's going on. You'd have to report that morally, ethically. And she's like, makes jokes. She's like, no, you're okay, you're cool. And then she walks out. No tension there. And just generally, everybody's desperate to be friends to the point that it's a little pathetic. I mean, I know human beings, we all want friends, especially younger people. You're like insecure and stuff like that. But they overdo it to where every character is just desperate to be super friendly, like Sam the hologram girl. She literally wanders through the hallway saying hi to people in different languages and like looking sad when they just ignore her because she's weird. And she's always like that. She's always super friendly, over the top. And actually, it's kind of funny because at one point when they're in that room, like after the ship is damaged and Laura Thok needs surgery and Sam is going on like jibber jabbering, doing her happy thing, being friends with people, joking. Thok tells her that she wants significantly less cheerfulness in my final moments. I was like, yes, me too. I don't want this cheerfulness in my final moments of watching Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I mean, I'll probably keep watching to review it. Otherwise, I don't think I would be too into it. But the show itself knows that there's way too much cheerfulness in this show. I mean, they had a character literally say it. Then you have Worf Jr., the Klingon, and Caleb. Right away, Caleb helps the Klingon when he's getting bullied in the hallway, which is fine. I mean, you want the main character to stand up or, I don't mind that. But then afterwards, the Klingon character just like blurts out, I birdwatch with my mom or something. He just like gives awkward information, which the guy wasn't asking for. So Caleb stops and looks at him. And then the Klingon keeps going, telling him, he says something in Klingon, and he translates it. And it's like, a warrior stands up for his friends or something. And then Caleb just like looks at him for a second. And I think he says like, nice or something. Like it's actually awkward because, I mean, the script knows it's awkward. This Klingon is just blabbering, just desperate to be friends. He wouldn't let the guy go. He keeps talking to him, trying to suck him in to be his best friend, which is just ridiculous. Literally the captain, the chancellor, the first time she gets on the bridge, like one of the first things she says to everybody there is how she's so excited to meet everyone on the bridge. I want to meet you all. Now, in itself, that's not the worst thing. Yes, captains would probably say that. But everybody is saying that. Everybody is doing that over and over and over and over. There's no tension between characters. You could see more of this in Caleb. There's several times where he like petulantly, ridiculously, would just blurt out, I'm not wearing a uniform. I'm not getting a haircut. Because he's like a bad boy. He's tough. And then the Chancellor or Laura Thok is like, yes, he will. And he's like, okay. He just backs down right away. So that's getting rid of tension. And it also makes him look pathetic because he's obviously not that tough if he just buckles under every single time immediately. There's no tension. And then in the action sequences, that thing at the end, there weren't actually any obstacles when you look at it either. It's fake garbage going on. It's the illusion of action, but there's no true action. So like the ship gets encased in the programmable matter. And as soon as Caleb wakes up from the destruction and he listens, and for some reason it makes noise, even though it's on the outside of the ship. I don't know how he could hear this. He has like super hearing, I guess. It's so stupid. But he could hear the programmable matter on the outside of the ship. And right away he's like, oh, I know what this is, and I know how to solve it. Of course. Easy. So he calls the bridge to tell the captain. And the bridge officer tells him, Caleb, get off the line. You shouldn't be calling us right now. And the captain's like, no. Let him chat. Just let him talk. We're not busy right now. Our ship is about to be destroyed, but I want to hear what this little kid thinks, what he's going to tell me. So that's another example of tension and obstacles just being blasted out the airlock. He tells the captain that he alone, none of the officers on board, this super advanced starship, and all these officers with all this training, he's the only one that knows how to solve the problem. He tells her how he wants to do it, and she's like, okay, just like that. No problem. There's no obstacles here, no tension. Just do it. Do whatever you want. So he does it. He's working on the computer to find the frequency or something. I don't remember. It's garbage technobabble. Worse than normal, by the way. It's hard to follow. And then Sam, the hologram girl, comes and says, you know what? I could do it faster. So now not only are there no obstacles and no tension, they're reducing it actively. The girl is like, I could do it even better, even though you didn't ask me to. I'm going to solve this problem even faster, just to make the story suck even more. And so she does it. Then Genesis, the tough girl, comes along and she tells Caleb, I think jokingly, to hurry up, like I said earlier. And he's like, well, I could if you got an EVA suit and went out there. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. So again, it's getting easier and easier. He didn't even ask her. He was just joking. But then Thok says, you can't because the EVA, you need an officer connected to it or whatever. So you might think, oh, okay, finally one problem to overcome in this fucking show. We're almost at the end of the show and they finally have a problem, a minor one. And then right away, that bully kid, the Canonian or whatever, he's like, I'll do it. I could walk out without a suit magically. So it gets easier and easier and easier. Ridiculously easier to the point that he doesn't even need a suit now to do it. There's no obstacle. He just walks out the ship and solves the problem. And then they try to create a little tension where supposedly he only has 8 minutes. I don't know why or how that works, but he only has 8 minutes supposedly. And Genesis is like, oh, he's not going to make it. Got to get him out. And then right away, the doctor appears. He gives her full control to the tactical systems on the ship. She goes to the computer, and right away, she gets the tractor beam and pulls him in. That whole sequence between when the problem started and when she solved it, I haven't gone and looked, but it's maybe a minute or something. So it's not really a problem. There's nothing to overcome. All problems are instantly solved. All tensions are resolved instantly. Stories need problems. That's what stories are. Stories are problems and how the characters overcome them. Because characters need to have goals. You have to have obstacles in the way. And so the fun of watching stories, the reason we watch stories, one of the key reasons, is you want to see these characters we identify with and we like face huge problems, bigger problems that we face in our own lives. And they find a way to overcome it, but then they still face a new problem. And so you keep going up that chain of escalation of problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution. And that tension builds where it gets tighter and tighter. It's like a pressure cooker where the stakes get larger and larger and the main character is running out of options. Their path is getting narrower and there's more on the line and you're like, oh, fuck, how are they going to do this? They can't possibly do this. This is impossible. I want this guy or this woman. I like them so much. I want them to win. I want them to save the world or whatever. And so that's why you stay in your seat and watch to see how this resolves itself, how they're going to get out. And this show, by constantly killing every obstacle and all tensions between characters as soon as they emerge, they're killing the show. And that's why earlier I said the show is boring. The show is disjointed, so it has no logic. You feel no connection to the characters because nothing makes any sense, as I explained earlier. And then there's no obstacles and no tension. So there's no reason to watch. Because this character's just saying, I want to do this. And then the other person's like, okay. And then it works. And you do that over and over and over. There's no suspense, basically. And so the show is pretty dead. It's pretty flatlined. Doesn't get your blood pumping or anything. There's no point of watching it. The last big problem I want to talk about here is the repetition of key story and character beats. And this type of repetition shows a real lack of imagination and a lack of digging deeply enough or thinking through your story enough and your characters to come up with new material to explore and to fill it out. And so because you don't have enough to fill out like an hour-long show or hour and 5 minutes, whatever this is, they resort to repeating stuff. So I'll give some examples. And one I mentioned already kind of, where the kid, Caleb, 2 different times, he says something super rebellious that he's not going to do. He's like, I'm not going to wear uniforms. I'm not going to get a haircut. And then the chancellor and the executive officer are like, yeah, you are. And he's like, okay. And he does it later, no problem. So that's 2 times with the same beat, where he pretends to be tough, but he doesn't back it up and nothing comes out of it. And so that weakens his character and makes him seem not tough. And the whole background of him having supposedly committed all kinds of tough guy crimes. He's like a bad outlaw, bandito type of figure. I don't believe it at all. Because he can't even stand up to people about getting a haircut. So he's extremely weak. He feels and even looks like a middle school, like, male model clothing, B-rated clothing model type. Like he's not tough at all. Another example would be Genesis, the girl whose father is an admiral. They show her meeting 2 different characters, and the way she handles the characters are exactly the same. So I'll get specific. When Sam is walking through the hallway trying to meet people, which is stupid in its own right, but I mean, I'm not stressing like small stuff, but that was ridiculous. The character's stupid. But she's going up and saying hi, 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 and everyone's ignoring her. Then Genesis introduces herself, and they start with this language thing because they both understand the same language. And so the hologram girl, Sam, says, I'm Sam. Are we friends now? Genesis says, that depends. What is it going to cost me? I assume there's yearly membership fees, basic dues, tithes, and offerings. Oh, you're giving your friendship away? What a mark. I'll take it. All right. So now keep that in mind. And now I'm going to talk about the second example, where she first meets or first talks to Caleb. Caleb is in some classroom hacking a computer. I don't know why classrooms have computers on the walls, but they do, I guess. Highly sensitive computers. And she just randomly walks in. She's just wandering around. She's got nothing to do. And she just wanders into this room and sees him. And he asks her, you going to turn me in? What's going to happen here? Because you caught me doing this, breaking the law. And she says, I want to learn how to kill a man with a toothbrush. Teach me in exchange. I want somebody to cover all my duty shifts on the duty roster, dress me, and I want all my food pre-chewed and spit in my mouth like a baby bird. All right. So both of those conversations with Sam and with Caleb, they follow the same pattern where she starts kind of serious, where like Sam says, are we friends? And then she says, that depends. What's it going to cost me? At first you might be like, oh, okay, this sounds like something real. And with Caleb, she says she wants to learn how to kill a man with a toothbrush. And because the show is so stupid and the dialogue is stupid, I kind of thought she was serious at first. Like she did want that. And the character reacts like that too, in his face. It seems like she does want to learn that. But then she keeps going and she pushes out. So she's a very sarcastic but also flirty character. That's how both exchanges are. They're sarcastic and flirty. So she repeats that twice. And then we have some more examples. 2 different times in the show, main characters are essentially blackmailed into doing something in exchange for gaining information on the location of people. So the woman who becomes the chancellor, at that point, I guess she's a teacher on Bajor. Admiral Vance says, I found Caleb. I'll let you talk to him. I'll tell you where he is if you become the chancellor of Starfleet. Then this woman, the chancellor, the future chancellor, goes to the penal colony to talk to Caleb. He doesn't want to join the Federation or the Academy. And so she says, oh, by the way, your mom is out of prison. She broke out. I'll help you find her if you join the Academy. So we have 2 examples there of blackmail. And they're actually horrific because now they're turning the Federation and Starfleet into kind of evil people where they're using blackmail against people they supposedly love and care about. Like Admiral Vance likes this woman, Ake. And then Ake supposedly is obsessed with Caleb and sees him as like her, kind of her son. Since her son died years back, she's like the replacement sort of. And yet they're still blackmailing the shit out of these people, using them, telling them, those people you care about and you really love and you want to find? I know where they are, but I'm not going to help you. You got to help me first. Do what I want you to do. And then I might help you out. So it's stupid in the first place, but right now I'm going over like how it's repetitious. They use the same plot, the twist, the blackmail of locating people to get the plot to move. They're forcing the plot along by using that technique of blackmail. Then Caleb agrees 2 separate times to join Starfleet. He joins when he's at that penal colony talking to Chancellor Ake when she blackmails him. And then he agrees at the end of the show after he supposedly broke all kinds of rules by hacking into the computer and stuff like that. And she says, yeah, you're horrible, but tell you what, I'll forgive your mistakes. We'll give you some light punishment if you join and stay in the academy. But she already used that exact line with him before. She pardoned all the crap he did that got him into prison or into the penal colony if he would join. So it's exactly the same. They're copying it. And because he already agreed in the past to join, him joining in at the end has no impact. It's a dead plot point and is dead. And all these repetitions, the second time they do it, it's dead. So it kills the show. And then 2 different times, people tell Caleb that his mom is free, that she's out of jail. Like I said, Ake told him. And then later at the end, when he's fighting the bad guy, News Braka, tells him your mom broke out of prison. So that second revelation has 0 impact because it was already done. So the show is repeating things. So not only does it dull the show and show a lack of creativity, but they're limiting themselves. Like look at Genesis. When I talked about when she has those 2 conversations with the characters for the first time, and she uses the same flirty, sarcastic patter, you're missing out on an opportunity to show a different side of her personality. Like they just keep stressing, oh, she's funny, she's sarcastic, and a little friendly. And that's all you get over and over and over with her. So it feels like a flat character. Because real people, you wouldn't react to those 2 characters the same way. Like think if you're at a party and you see somebody really attractive, you might flirt with them. But then 5 minutes later, you run into another person and then they're the opposite sex from what you like or something different than what you like. You're not going to open up by flirting with them. there would be no reason to flirt with them. You're not attracted to them. And here in the show, the girl Genesis is attracted to men. It looks like she seems attracted to Caleb, which is fine. And then later on, she seems attracted to the bully guy, the Kaonian. I don't remember the species. I keep messing it up. But the bully guy. So I think they're going to do some sort of love triangle with those two guys and the girl. So I would say, yeah, keep her flirty with the guy, with Caleb. But then she never shows any attraction to women. So she shouldn't, there's no reason to give her that like flirty kind of feeling with Sam. Give her something different. Show a different side of her personality. Maybe she tries to be nice to Sam, but because of the way Sam is, like innocent, asking all these stupid questions and stuff, she gets really impatient with her really quickly to the point of rudeness, and it's almost awkward for the audience. Or maybe she talks down to her because her father is an admiral. Although that might overlap with the bully because he's kind of, I think he's like a prince, but it's another option. Or maybe she's nice to Sam, but after she finds out that she's just a hologram, she gets a bit more reserved because she thinks she's not a real person, or she's just like a program. She doesn't have real emotions, she thinks. Or let's say if Sam and the Klingon get into that fight in the hallway, maybe Genesis like gets set off real quickly and starts the physical fight. She starts to try to fight those guys, beat them up. Even though she's overwhelmed and you can see she's probably going to lose, she doesn't care. She still jumps at them and fights. And then Caleb is put in the unexpected position for him of having to stop the fight. Or whatever. But all of those give different possibility, different angles on her personality, and they give different angles for future storylines and interactions. They add a little more than just repeating the same beats, than just flirty and sarcastic. I want to wrap back to the beginning, what I said at the start of this review, about whether I think the show was able to avoid the pitfalls that I detected just in the title alone, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, and the problem that those create. And no, I do not think they avoided the problems. I think they jumped headfirst. They just like dived. They dove into the empty swimming pool here. I'm about to get to the solutions now. But first, I want to talk about a couple concrete things that I couldn't lump in with the other things I talked about that'll help understand why I make certain changes to the show. And so the first one is the bad guy. The bad guy in the show is garbage. And yet, he's probably the most important character in the show because he's the only character that really connects from the beginning to the end, aside from Caleb himself. Also, the bad guy, by introducing him in this first episode and then letting him escape, it seems like they're making him a big reoccurring character that'll probably come back later in the season or at the end of the season for Caleb to confront. In other words, Caleb will have to defeat him to overcome his trauma with his mom and his broken family and stuff like that. So he's a really big character. And by the way, that reminds me, how did the bad guy escape at the end? He got on the escape pod and he ejects. Those things only go at impulse because they don't have warp nacelles or a warp core, so they can't warp. So he's just like floating a few meters from the ship. Couldn't they have just tractored him in? I don't get how he escaped. It's bizarre. But anyways, the bad guy is terrible because look how the show opens. At the beginning of the show, he's already defeated. Starfleet has kicked his ass. They arrested his ass. And now his ass is on trial. So before the show already starts, he already lost. That's not a good bad guy. Then at the end of the show, he gets wasted by some little kid. And I'm calling, even though the kid's 25, Caleb, I'm calling him a kid because he looks and acts like a little kid. But he gets defeated by a kid who hasn't had a single day of academy training. And he defeats him in a Starfleet vessel with Starfleet technology. When he doesn't know how to use it, he still beats the bad guy. And even though the bad guy's supposedly stronger or half Klingon, Caleb still kicks his ass, outsmarts him. And then the bad guy has his big secret James Bond villain spaceship lair destroyed by like 5 photon torpedoes from the Athena, which is a training vessel, an academy vessel. So it's a weak ship. And he loses. So he's lost at the beginning of the show, before the show starts. He's lost at the end to a bunch of numbskulls. So he's an easy to defeat bad guy. He's about as useful as I am. Because if I try to be a bad guy, I would get destroyed and arrested right away, just like this guy did. So he's not good. And he's just a random, snarling, like wannabe kind of Joker figure, chaotic. There's nothing unique about him. Now compare that to Star Trek The Next Generation. That show in its first episode opened up with Q. And Q reappeared throughout the series. And he served as like the thematic glue for the show. Because the theme of that show was putting Picard and all of humanity on trial. This bad guy doesn't really do anything thematic that I could see going forward in the show. All right, so that's the first thing. The first thing the bad guy needs to change to make him a worthy opponent. The second concrete thing is that I don't see how the show can move forward. The show's already finished. It's done because the theme of the show, well, on the surface, they want the show to be about Caleb finding his mom. But then they also, when you go just like a little bit deeper, it's about Caleb and all the kids, the Academy kids, learning to or discovering their true family via joining the Academy and learning that they belong to Starfleet. Starfleet's their family, and they're going to become their true selves by adopting the Star Trek ethos. So that's why the show is called Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Well, guess what? Caleb joins the Academy. He agreed to join twice, once at the beginning of the show, 20 minutes in, and again at the very end. So if he agreed to join the Academy 2 times, the show is done. He found his family, and he found his mom, because now his mom is Chancellor Ake. That's his adopted mother. And we can see that at the end when he's standing side by side with her. And I guess that's her quarters, which she transformed to look like an American craftsman house from like the early 1900s. It was a movement in American architecture. That's how it looks. So they're literally standing in like a cozy house. He and his new mom talking, and now she's found her adoptive son, because that's her journey. She's looking for a son to replace the one she lost. So both of their character arcs are completed, and the show's arc for all the characters are completed because they all love Starfleet. They all love the Academy. At the end, they're all standing there holding hands and crying and smiling and whatever. So the show is finished. There's no reason for the show to go on in any way. The bad guy got his ass kicked. The characters completed their arc and found their family. So you cannot do that. This is a basic mistake. You need to keep these things open so that you have somewhere for the show to go throughout the season and for multiple seasons possibly. And so I'll address that in the solutions. And I mean, now that I've been talking about this, I kind of regret my 4 out of 10 because it's so bad. So many different ways. But I'm going to keep it a 4 out of 10 because it's not so bad that it's not fully embarrassing, although it is kind of embarrassing. It's not so bad that it's good. They have elements where they could finagle it and make it work. And so now I want to talk about how I would make this work. How would I fix it? And if you're not familiar with this channel, the way I approach the solutions is I take what they gave me. I take the script they have, the show they made, and I try to work that in good faith and fulfill their vision. So I'm not going to say like, just throw the show away and do something different. I'm going to try to work with what they have and see if I can make something work here. So let's do this. Let's fix this show right now. The thing that this episode needs that would fix most of the problems that I had is an overall arc that would tie all the elements of the show together logically and step by step. And I need that first part, that middle, and that last ending part to blend together smoothly, which is what does not happen now, which is why it doesn't really feel like a story. It feels like random crap happening. So we're going to fix that. So how do you fix that? How do you come up with a story from these elements that we have? We usually, almost always, when you're trying to fix a story or you're looking at a story and wondering, wow, why was it so bad or why didn't it work? Usually you could just go to the main character. Look at the main character because the main character is what drives the whole story, that influences all aspects or really creates all aspects of the story. Because the main character is going to have a goal. Once they have a goal, you have to ask, what are they willing to do to accomplish it? And that gives you your plot points. And once you have those plot points, you know the kind of things that could go wrong that would keep them from accomplishing their goal right at the start of the story, right? You need stuff to go wrong. And once you know what the good guy or what your protagonist stands for and what they want, your bad guy is going to be the opposite of that to some degree. So that gives you your bad guy. So once you have the main character, you basically have all aspects of the story, which is why when I'm writing and I'm having trouble, I always sit down. You could do this a bunch of different times during the whole process of writing, whether at the very beginning or even when you're fixing it up and editing. I just sit down and spend like 10 minutes, 20 minutes just brainstorming on the main character, asking all kinds of questions. What do they want? What are they willing to accomplish? Big things like that, but also small things like what do they like to do for fun? What would be their ideal first date? Like that kind of stuff isn't going to make it into the story, but it tells you a lot about the character and then tells you about the story. So here the thing the character wants, what Caleb wants, is his mom. So you need a story that deals with his mom. Everything should connect to that in this episode and probably this season. So I would just make this episode about Caleb trying to break his mom out of jail. That's it. That's the story for this episode. It's really simple
It's easy to understand. It's kind of catchy. You could tell a friend, what's the first episode of the Star Trek show about? And you say that, and they'd be like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. So let's break this down. And to break it down, you're going to have to build up the mom a little more because she's so important to him. And if she's important to him, she's important to the audience because she defines Caleb. So I'd want to fix the problems that I have with her. Like, is she a pirate? Is she doing it willingly? Why was she surprised at being arrested? Why was she surprised at going to jail? Why was she surprised that she would lose her son? Why did she think the Federation would help her or be nice to her? And why didn't the kid visit her if he had visitation rights? Like, he just gave up on her, and then he still supposedly was obsessed with her. So none of those things made sense. We need to clean all that up. And it's actually pretty easy if you just do it like the most obvious, direct way. So what I would do, the backstory for the mom, is that she came from a broken family. She's poor. She became a pirate. She joined up with News Braca just to survive. And in the process of being a pirate, by accident, she got pregnant and had a kid. She had Caleb. And despite all expectations, she actually really loved this kid and she loved being a mom. And so she decides that she needs to stop being a pirate. She wants to get out of this life. She wants to leave the pirate crew to raise her son because she doesn't want him around that kind of violence. She doesn't want to raise him in that. She wants to break the cycle of, her poverty and lawlessness. She doesn't want her son to do that. And so what she decides to do, she turns. She would reach out to Starfleet to help them capture News Braca. She would turn in her crew in return for them giving her like witness protection or leniency or immunity or whatever, because she wants to break out. So she turns against the crew. So now things are starting to make a little more sense, hopefully you can see, that she made a deal with the Federation ahead of time, and she expects leniency. So the show would open with the ship, the pirate crew. You would see the mom secretly talking to the Federation, and she agrees to lead News Braca and the whole crew into an ambush where the Federation would be waiting and take them in like really quickly without violence. They'd finally catch this bad guy. And in return, she'll get away with it. But of course, something has to go wrong. So what goes wrong? Well, I would have her tell News Braca, I have this tip about this easy outpost we could get. He agrees to do it. They go in. But News Braca surprises her by taking her son, by taking Caleb, out on this raid. Like maybe she's asleep and they're going to do it in the morning, and then she wakes up and they're already gone and her son is gone. And News Braca took the kid because he wants to raise the kid. He wants to teach the kid like the ways of piracy. And I'll talk more about News Braca and his belief system in a sec. But he takes the kid. And so the mom's like, oh shit, she didn't expect that. So she has to go out to try to get her kid before the Federation springs the trap, because now her kid is going to be in the middle of a firefight. So she chases after News Braca and the pirates. The firefight breaks out. And the mom, in the process of like trying to get her son back, fighting News Braca and also avoiding the Federation, the Starfleet officers fighting them, maybe she would like fire a phaser and blow something up, and like a building will blow up or a ship blows up or whatever. She doesn't mean to do it. But while protecting her son, she kills Starfleet officers. Inadvertently, accidentally. So that's what goes wrong. And now you can see how this works. I would have News Braca not get arrested. He would break away because him getting caught at the beginning is just weak. It makes him look stupid. So he would get away. But the mom either gets arrested or she turns herself in. The son is fine. But now she has to face the consequences. And so she expects leniency or immunity or whatever. But they say, no, it went wrong. You accidentally killed Starfleet officers. You have to pay. So she ends up going to jail or work camp or whatever. And so now she feels betrayed. That's why she's angry at the Federation, because she tried to do the right thing. And she didn't mean for it to go wrong. News Braca screwed things up. But she had to protect her son. So she's furious at the Federation. She feels betrayed. But that's how things go. She gets locked up and put away. And now the kid is a ward of the Federation. All right, so that's the end of the beginning. That would be like 10 minutes or something. You'd have action right away. Characters that are kind of interesting. You'd see News Braca, who I still have to explain. You see the mom. And it's logical. Things make sense now. As opposed to how the show currently is, where I was really just confused. It was bizarre. It was like not human almost. Like human beings didn't write that. It didn't make sense emotionally. So now let me talk about News Braca. I would change him a lot. I would basically throw out everything they did with this character and just start new. You could keep his name, I don't care, but the character changes. Right now, he's this stupid second-rate random villain of the week who's like always laughing, twirling his mustaches, hamming it up. He's like a bad Heath Ledger Joker or something. This Prince of Chaos who's always laughing, right? It's stupid. It's cartoony. Instead, I would make this guy actually charismatic, like really cool, likable, even sexy. Get like a sexy actor, some dude that all the ladies love and guys, I guess, if you're into that. But he would have presence, and he would be kind of like a rogue, like Han Solo. But instead of Han Solo being like a rascal with a heart of gold, this guy would be like a smooth criminal with actual evil inside of him. Like there's a darkness inside of him. So he's like the opposite of Han Solo. And he needs a philosophy, because if he's going to be the enemy, not just for this first episode, which is probably the most important episode of the whole series, but it looks like they're going to make him a villain, a recurring villain for this season, and maybe multiple seasons. I don't know. So he needs to stand for something. He needs to believe in something that's at odds with the Federation. He has to be the opposite of them in a way. So what's the opposite of Federation? Well, I'm not sure about his beliefs, his political beliefs, his philosophical beliefs. If I were getting paid $1 million, I would nail all this down for sure. But my instinct is that he would be maybe like an anarchist, like the political philosophy anarchism in real life. Not like the middle school, I'm an anarchist, not like that, but like actual anarchism. Maybe he's libertarian. Or maybe, this might be kind of interesting, you could go with the burn thing. Because in the burn, all these warp drives just exploded out of nowhere and killed like millions or billions of people and destroyed the galactic civilization. So he's reacting to that maybe. And so he's against technology. He's against like the working with others and like this trans warp civilization. He believes in self-sufficiency, low technology, standing on your own. He's kind of like a frontier cowboy type. So he's actively against what the Federation stands for. I don't want the bad guy's philosophy and his charm to be so strong and coherent that like if you close one eye, you could almost look at the Federation and be like, yeah, they are the bad guys. He's kind of right. Because I mean, think of it this way. 400 years ago or whatever it was, all the dilithium exploded. So for the Federation to come back and try to rebuild what they had before, it's irresponsible and maybe even murderous and suicidal. Hundreds of millions or billions of people died, and now they're going to rebuild that infrastructure so it could happen again. I don't know exactly if they're using the same technology or they change things. Like I said, I hate this time period. I hate the burn. I hate all of that. But I'm just throwing ideas around here. And maybe it could be interesting. And so he has this group of people. He's like a cult leader. He has these people that he cares for, that he uses his ship to get supplies and protect themselves. But he doesn't want the Federation doing an incursion on his people or his planet or whatever. He wants to stay separate and independent. So that's why he's like a pirate. So he's not just a pirate for the fun of it. There's an actual reason, a belief system behind it. So that's my idea of Noose Baraka. He's smarter, he's cooler, he's likable, but he has an actual belief system at odds with the Federation. I'd want Noose Baraka to be like a father figure to Caleb. You would see that when they're interacting, when he's taking the kid in to do the heist or whatever, the hit, that he actually does like the kid. And they get along. They're like father and son. And in fact, you can maybe even make him the father. And I wouldn't make it a surprise like the Darth Vader thing. You could just say it outright that he's the dad. But the mom worries that he's not, the right father figure. He's too dangerous, he's too crazy. So she has to take the kid away to save him. But I want him to care for the kid. I don't want him to be a cartoon character. Because this would help explain why Noose Baraka seems to have this weird connection to the kid that you see in the episode right now, which isn't really explained. It's not satisfying. But if you make him either the father or a father figure, then it makes sense. And that will come back later in the episode as I've designed it. Okay, so after that introductory period, I would skip to the present, where now Caleb is an adult. And now, instead of him being on some ship already captured, like an idiot, being sent to jail, which makes him weaker, just like with Noose Baraka being captured at the beginning, I would have Caleb actually doing piracy. He would be on a job, maybe with a friend or something. He's a small-time bandit, and he's breaking into something. He's stealing, whatever. He's doing something illegal. So we could see that, oh yeah, okay, he is actually a smuggler, an outlaw. And in the process of doing this job, he would have access. He'd see like a Federation computer or a tablet or something. And almost on a whim, he would go in and look for his mom. Actually, let me amend that because I just had an idea for a scene, the beginnings of a scene. So after they do the hit, they get back to their little ship. It'd be like a shuttle, a mini Millennium Falcon, where him and his buddy live, travel, and so on, do hits. And they would be going over their hoard that they just got. And so his buddy would be excited about the lithium bars, maybe, or the Starfleet phasers, the phaser rifles, maybe an EV suit. He likes the flashy stuff, the toys. Whereas Caleb, he's not really into that because his heart isn't into this lifestyle. He's doing it out of necessity. He hates the Federation and Starfleet for what they did to his mother and to him, to his family. And he can't interact with like the dominant monolithic form of living, of civilization in this sector of the galaxy. Like if you don't like the Federation, there's really no other alternatives. It's almost dystopian if you look at it from his point of view. But he wants a bigger life, a better life. And of course he's worried about his mom. So he's not really into it. And so instead what catches his eye would be a Starfleet tablet or a communicator or some sort of computer. And almost on a whim, he would pick it up and find that it's an officer's, like a high security grade computer, and it's not locked. And so he goes in and almost on a whim, he searches for his mom and he finds her. You know, periodically we'd hear through dialogue that he's kind of kept his ear out and eye out for signs of his mom, but he never heard anything and he never had access to high security information. So now he has it. He finds the planet that she's on. She's being transferred, and it's going to be a low guard, low escort. This is the first time, the first chance he has, realistically, to save her, to break her out. So he'll tell his buddy or his team, and they'll be like, you know, we know how much this means to you. We got you, let's do this. So that's the plan. They're going to go break out the mom. So the story is really fully launched here. And while Caleb is doing that first heist in the process of it, or just before, I would show that Noose Braca still tries to reach out to him occasionally. But Caleb never responds. He ignores his hails or his messages or whatever like that. The reason being that he blames Noose Braca for getting his mom incarcerated, getting captured, and for abandoning them because Noose Braca leaves that situation at the beginning of that opening action sequence. He decides to leave. He abandons the mom and the kid to the Federation. So Caleb wants something to do with him, even though Noose Braca occasionally reaches out to him. And this will come back later. Because the whole dynamic, this whole show is about family. So you need a mother, you need a father, you need to test those ties, right? Those frictions there. So I'm trying to amp that up. The show didn't go deep enough into that. Just embrace it. Then I would skip to Chancellor Ake. She wouldn't be a chancellor. She would just be a captain in my version. She has a ship, and she never quit. She never became a school teacher. I've had a lot of teaching experience, and I've never been with a former Marine Corps general or admiral, Navy admiral, who became a school teacher. Like, that doesn't really happen. That was a stupid move. It was a weird move. But anyways, in my version, she never quit teaching. She's still a captain. But she does feel bad about what happened with the mom and with Caleb. So her response to that has been to become a mentor. She would be unique in the Federation for being like the captain who requests the most new recruits or new graduates of the Academy. And she serves as a mentor. So that's the way it affected her. And that kind of ties in with what's going to happen. But other than that, she has a normal functioning ship. But she just has a lot of junior officers and ensigns and stuff by choice. The way I would handle Ake's first scene, kind of her introduction, and the introduction of the whole ship, is I would start on the ship, on the Athena, with Ake on the bridge, intensely overseeing a mission already in progress the first time we see him. And this mission would be something dangerous, so I'd probably like an EVA, like maybe they sent out a shuttle to go do like a spacewalk around a meteor or whatever. Or I guess it's called a comet, right? I don't know. But it's unstable. There's like gases that come out periodically, so it moves unpredictably. It's a little bit dangerous. And the people doing the mission, I would have probably 2 of the younger crew, like enlisted or junior officers. Because remember, she's like a mentor now. She likes having these younger officers and crew members around on her ship. So these two are there, and then there'd be like a senior officer also out there in space overseeing it all. And she's on the bridge watching it, and you could tell she's really tense, really invested, and she's almost micromanaging because she cares so much for the kids out there. So now you're getting a bit of her personality while they're doing something. They're not just standing in a hallway talking like they did in the show, which is not how you introduce characters. You want to introduce characters while they're trying to achieve something, while they're acting and doing something. Then a call will come onto the bridge from another crew member, maybe the first officer, saying that Ake's presence is urgently needed somewhere else on the ship. And Ake would refuse to go. You could tell she doesn't want to go. She wants to stay on the bridge and take care of the younger crew members out in space. She's overseeing that. And so now you're getting the feeling that she's too invested, that what seemed to be a strength can actually be a weakness. She can't let go. She can't hand over responsibility to these young crew members. So she's a mentor, but she's almost too invested. It's a weakness for her. And so that would come into play later in the season to create interesting problems because the show's about family and sacrifice. Like the mom was willing to sacrifice Starfleet officers to save her son. And so in the future, we'll see, well, what is Ake willing to sacrifice for the young people around her and her crew? But anyways, eventually Ake gets convinced, maybe the people on the bridge and the crew doing the extravehicular activity, they tell her, we're fine, you don't need to be here, go ahead and go. So she goes. And what she finds is that it's actually a surprise that the Federation has decided to give her a commendation for being a great mentor. Maybe she has the record in Starfleet for the captain who's had the most enlisted crew members and warrant officers go on to become full commissioned officers or something like that. So she's inspired a lot of people. And so they give her like a medal, a ribbon. There'll be a few crew members there celebrating with her, like a little party. And there'd be an admiral like on the screen or in a hologram awarding her that. And so everyone congratulates her. She's happy, but you could tell she wants to leave. So she leaves the party early to go back to the bridge because she's still like obsessed with this, She's anxious. And while she's going back to the bridge, maybe she'd be walking with the first officer. And they would talk a little briefly. She would say like, well, what made you be like this? Why are you a mentor? And so you get a little bit of that story, a little hint of what happened with Caleb and the mother. And you would also learn that maybe the first officer was one of those people. He started as just enlisted. And because of Ake's mentorship and inspiration, this person went back and became a full officer and now is the executive officer underneath her. So you get a little bit of the relationship. So that's basically what would happen there. Then I go back to Caleb's story. Caleb and his buddy or his little pirate crew or whatever, they're going to launch the assault, the ambush on this shuttle that's transporting his mother. But of course, something goes wrong. And maybe the Starfleet security is stronger than he expected. Maybe it's just botched. I'm not sure exactly what goes wrong. But what I would want to happen is he would get, let's say they're flying in space. He shoots the ship and they end up crashing. They all crash on a planet. Or maybe she's flying off the planet where she's being transferred from. He attacks there and then they crash on the surface. But I want him to be like injured. His ship is probably wrecked. His mom's ship is damaged but not wrecked. And now the Starfleet officers are like on the ground running with phasers to try to hunt him down and kill him. So he's on the run. He goes like into a cave and now he's trapped. He's hiding out. But things are looking really bad. It's completely botched. And so what I'd want him to do is he realizes he can't do this on his own. He's about to get captured. He failed getting his mom. Maybe she's injured. He doesn't know. And he might be injured. So he decides to call for help. And so remember, Noose Baraka had tried to contact him before, but this kid, Caleb, always refused to answer. But now that he needs help, he calls Baraka for help because he knows he has a ship and a crew and he could kind of bail him out and help him. And so Caleb tells him, it's me. I'm trying to get my mom. My mom is here. Come and help us. And I would make it really clear that calling Baraka is his absolute last option. Like maybe he's bleeding out. He could hear the Federation or see them coming. They're almost on him. And he's really worried about his mom. And so he's got no choice. It hurts him to do it, but he has to do it for the sake of his life, his freedom, and his mom, most importantly. And so he calls him. And I just had an idea. Maybe instead of being on the planet in the cave, which we see a lot in Star Trek, going all the way back to like the original series, maybe instead this whole action sequence takes place in space, where Caleb hits the transport vessel in space. Both ships get like incapacitated, almost destroyed. Either they crash or they both hit each other with torpedoes or something. And so they're dead floating in space. But Caleb's is worse. He's worse off. He got hit harder. And then the Starfleet officers, to his horror, he sees them come out of their ship in EV suits. And so they're floating over towards him and like using torches or phasers just like cut their way into the ship to get him. So maybe instead of being trapped in a cave, he's just trapped in his ship with all systems down, life support's going down. All he has is like that one Starfleet tablet that he used to find his mom. He can use that to call for Noose Bracca. So that would be like a little different action sequence than you usually see in Star Trek, instead of the old cave stuff they always do. I don't know. And just kind of thinking on the fly here, it might even be more poignant or more effective if actually Caleb actually succeeded in capturing his mother, or saving his mother. Like he actually boarded the vessel, he got her. He in the process, or just after getting back to his vessel, one of the Starfleet officers surprises him and like fires or does something, and that's how the disaster unfolds. And his mom would beg him not to call Noose Bracca because she hates him. They have a past. But he loves her so much that he has to do it anyways, against her wishes. So Noose Bracca would arrive. And so that's where the firefight starts. And so at this point, I would switch back to the Athena, and Ake would get a call from Starfleet headquarters telling her the situation about this breakout. They know that she has a past with all those characters, with Bracca, with Caleb, and with the mom. And so they're dispatching her to go deal with it because she has insight into the psychology. She can maybe talk them down and so on. So this is like a big deal for her because this is like a big flashback to her big mistake in life, her biggest professional error, and something that changed the direction of her life. And so now that explains how all these characters converge instead of it just being coincidence, where Noose Bracca has like a little stupid trap in a gas cloud, and Ake randomly decides to go into the gas cloud, and now at least it's a little bit logical. And there's clear outcomes that each of the characters want. They're trying to achieve something, and they all face obstacles. So as the action progresses, I would create a situation where Bracca saves Caleb by by just blowing up Starfleet people. He gets the kid out, but the kid has to get the mom. And so I would reach a situation where Caleb could get his mom, but to do so, he'd have to kill Starfleet officers. And he has the phaser out, or a phaser rifle or whatever. And he could shoot them and kill him, but he hesitates. And he doesn't do it. He refuses to pull the trigger. He doesn't sacrifice anybody. He doesn't kill anybody. And he hasn't actually killed anybody so far. Noose Bracca has killed all the people. And other people got injured from just the crash. But Caleb directly hasn't killed anyone. And now that he's put in that position where he could kill to save his mom, he doesn't pull the trigger. Instead, all he could do is watch, powerless, as his mother is taken away by armed guards, recaptured. And as he watches, I would maybe have Caleb have a flashback to when he was a kid, and maybe he didn't show this directly before, but when he's a kid and he's watching his mom leave and he's freaking out as a little kid, like screaming. So you have him reliving that horrible experience and that failure again. So in effect, you're showing that this is an aspect, a kind of a character flaw or something he has to overcome. The feeling that no matter how old he gets, at base, he's afraid that he's still a powerless little kid who's basically trapped in that moment of losing his mom, growing up without her. He's resentful. He feels weak and small. And so in the course of his story, he's going to have to get over that somehow. And then Noose Bracca, he's forced to retreat because more and more ships are like warping in as backup. And so he has to leave. And so Caleb would get captured by the Athena, by Ake, after this point. So now you're at the end of the episode. And Ake would talk to him like they talk at the end of the current episode, just the two of them. And she would say, he's up for serious charges, but in light of the fact that he didn't actually kill anybody, and she saw what happened, she saw that he refused to pull the trigger, she thinks that there's potential in him and that she's willing to kind of go easy on him if he joins the crew and agrees to become a provisional Starfleet, let's say junior ensign. Like as soon as he'll serve on the ship and receive training, but as soon when they go back to Earth, they're going to drop him off to the academy. Now, the reason she's offering this is because they need Caleb's help to capture Noose Baraka. So they're going to use him to lead or like trap Baraka. And conversely, Caleb agrees to this because he needs their help to get his mom. And I would probably have this idea of being lenient on Caleb in return for him serving and helping. I would have that idea be Ake's. And she would be the one that convinces Starfleet to give this offer. And she would tell him the reasons I just said. We need his help. He could help us get Baraka or trap him. He could help us infiltrate the underworld, the outlaw world, and finally shut down these pirates. So she's saying like the logical reasons. And Starfleet agrees reluctantly. But they also suspect that this trauma that she had in the past, her guilt for what happened with Caleb, and her need to be like a mentor, her need to like fill the gap of her dead son, because I would keep that aspect that she's trying to make up for her dead son, that's maybe a weakness in her. And so they would start to slightly distrust her, slightly be suspicious, watch her a little closely. And so that creates friction between her and Starfleet and the Federation. So that could create future storylines there with her. A good rule of thumb when you're doing stories, designing stories and characters, is you always want to make things difficult for them. Create conflicts, tensions, cleavages between characters and themes and so on. Because it gives you more material to work with, more storyline to expand with. So the more that kind of stuff we're just hinting at here, the longer you could go through the season and through the series, if it continues past one season, and the deeper the stories will be. There'll be deeper, more interesting characters. Because you have all these different facets of things they want, things they're afraid of, people they're allied with, and people they're enemies with. So that's why I'm trying to add these little things to all the characters. You don't want to overdo it because then you never get to the story. But you can't just have a character who has one thing to them, just like one trait, and he has no personality or other interests. Like that's stupid for your main character. You're probably going to want to shoot for like 3 things, 3 aspects to them, 3 dimensions, maybe more, but like 2, 3 is fine for the start of a show and go from there. And I just had a brainstorm. Earlier when I said that Caleb, his attempt to free his mom would go wrong, that something would go wrong there. I think the thing that should go wrong actually, like after he boards the ship, gets his mom, he's either in the process of taking her back to his ship or he's back on the ship and about to leave. What I think could happen is a third party shows up and opens fire. And by third party, I mean like, let's say the Klingon Empire or someone else. It could be a different empire, either established or something new, a new alien species or whatever. The idea being that when his mom was a pirate, she attacked them and stole something from them. And so they found out she's being transferred and they saw this as their opportunity to get her, to either try her, put her in jail, enslave her, kill her, take her back to their territory or find out what she stole. So they want vengeance, and that's why they show up. I like this angle because it gives a clear purpose or a clear direction for almost all the characters in the show. Caleb would want to go and get his mother from that entity, the faction, the Empire, whatever. Captain Ake would want to help him, but to help him, she has to take the ship and venture into dangerous territory. She's not just looking in Federation space for some runaway convict, which sounds kind of easy to me. This is scary if they have to go actively into enemy territory. And Starfleet or the Federation would have a new enemy either on their borders or within, spreading that cancer, that they want to take care of because they're getting this faction is getting bolder, making incursions on Federation territory. So that's why they send the Athena on this mission, not just to get the mom, but to push back against these guys somehow. So with that, you'd have a goal for like the whole season to get the mom and also deal with this empire or whatever. Now, the thing I hinted at was that maybe she stole something and these other people want it back. So you'd kind of have like a treasure hunt thing for the season. So what would this thing be that she stole? Well, it could be anything. I wouldn't want it to be a MacGuffin though, like an empty thing, mystery box type thing. I don't want it to be actually real. And you wouldn't find out what it is until towards the end of the season
So this is looking forward quite a bit. But I think one possibility is maybe it's like an artifact from an ancient civilization, an advanced civilization, and it turns out to be like a one-use time travel portal or machine or something like that that they can unlock. And so the mom wants to go over there and use it to go back in time so that she could redo her life and live her whole life with her son, have her son's childhood. And Caleb is kind of attracted to that idea too. So you don't know what side he's going to go on. Because while that might be enticing from a personal, selfish point of view, the implications about time travel like that, changing the past, would be vast. So he's torn about that. Ake probably wouldn't want him to do it. Starfleet won't want them to do it. This is a really dangerous tool that nobody could get their hands on, they say. So you have that friction there, that tension, where some people want to use it, other people don't want to use it, and other people actually want to destroy it. So I don't know. Those are some ideas there that I think would provide a nice structure and natural storyline that comes through the characters, from the characters, throughout not just this episode, but this whole season or even a multi-season arc, which right now, this episode, gives you nothing. As I said, the show is over after this one episode already, which is ridiculous. So that's the basic. There's one other thing. At the end of the episode, he agrees to join on a provisional basis Starfleet and the Academy. But when he goes back to his room, he would use his computer to call his friend, that pirate that he was with before. And that pirate, let's say, escaped from the botched rescue attempt. And he would give him an update on what's going on. And then at the very end of the episode, you would learn that he doesn't actually want to join Starfleet or the Academy. He hates them. And he hates Ake. And he wants to kill her or fuck her over as soon as he can. As soon as he no longer needs her, he's going to screw them all over. He has no loyalty. So I think that adds an interesting wrinkle, and it's more believable. He's not going to go from hating them to loving them in just an hour of TV. It's going to be a season-long thing. And now you don't know what's going to happen. It's a volatile situation. You don't know who his loyalties truly align with. Will he choose Ake? Will he choose Braca? Will he get his mom? What is he willing to sacrifice? We're not exactly sure yet. So hopefully that makes it a little more interesting, a more logical episode, more direct, and it's easier to understand. It's about family, it's about sacrifice, it's about a rescue attempt to save his mom, and it's about learning who you belong to and who your loyalties align with. And the episode right now, to me, was just confusing, didn't really make sense. I kind of got what they were going for, but hopefully this is clear.